The other player that we heard from yesterday was a player who the Grizzlies brought in on an Exhibit 10 contract. Every training camp, you have a couple guys who get brought in for camp. The expectation is that they could find themselves linked up and maybe get an opportunity with the G League team. So in the case for the Grizzlies, that would be the Memphis Hustle. And that is Yuki Kawamura. And every preseason, there is a player who I deem as a player that I will be rooting for the rest of their careers, as I hope that they find a landing spot. It might not be with the Memphis Grizzlies, but it's someone who I hope finds their spot in the NBA someday. And for me this year, that is Yuki Kawamura. I remember us standing in the Grind City Media offices watching the Japan-France game in the Olympics, and Rui Hachimura fouls out, and we're watching Yuki Kawamura go crazy. This guy is getting rebounds in a game with Victor Wembanyama, in a game with Rudy Gobert, in a game with Nicholas Batum. He's hitting big threes. He had 29 points for Japan, almost knocked out the home country. And you're watching him, and he's 5'8". Like, he's this little magician out on the court. And now he's with the Grizzlies at training camp, and he talked yesterday, and he's been working on his English, and he delivered his answers in English and talked about how fast Jaw is and how he can fly. And he talked about going right at Zach Edey. And on Media Day, we saw Zach Edey and Yuki Kawamura recreate the famous Muggsy Bogues, Manute Bol photo. A little bit of a different height difference. Bol was 7'7" and Bogues was 5'3". Kawamura is 5'8", and Zach Edey is rounded up to 7'4". But it's a great picture, and it shows the height differential. But for Yuki Kawamura, and reading about his story and his ultimate goal, like, he wants to play basketball in the States. That has always been a goal of his. He has made his way up in the professional rankings in Japan. He played for their B League and continues to obviously make a presence for himself on the Olympic team. He played on their World Cup team as well. And he's got the fight to him. And, like, people are cheering for him like crazy. Like, every time Yuki Kawamura gets posted on socials, there is just a flood of engagement because there are so many people in Japan who care. And there's already a connection between Japan and the Grizzlies after Yuto Watanabe's time here. And it's cool to see that continue to carry over. But I had just the strangest, like, click moment yesterday when Yuki Kawamura was giving his post-practice availability, and he was talking about going at Edey, and he said that it reminded him a lot of going at one of his Japan B League teammates, Kai Soto. CJ, every single day I wake up to multiple TikTok notifications, and I love TikTok notifications, JB Jams forever. It is always a handful of people commenting on every video I've ever posted. I hope the Memphis Grizzlies sign Kai Soto. And I've been like, who is this Kai Soto guy? And then Yuki Kawamura is giving his availability yesterday, and he mentions Kai Soto, and they are teammates in the B League. And I look him up, and he's a guy from the Philippines. He's 7'3". He went undrafted in 2022. He was one of the original players who was going to forego his college eligibility and play for G League Ignite. And then COVID came, and because of the travel restrictions, it just never worked out. And he ended up going and playing for the Australian Basketball League. Ends up undrafted, is still searching for a home. He did Summer League last year. He's playing another season in Japan this year. But, like, the connection of these Japanese basketball players, well, he's Filipino, but playing in Japan right now, and then Yuki Kawamura, who's a Japanese basketball player. I love the worldwide nature of the NBA. I get so excited. The connectivity of all these different countries putting energy here. We're just hanging out in Memphis, Tennessee this morning, but the fact that there's someone, like, across the world in Japan who genuinely cares about Grizzlies training camp right now, I don't know. I love that. It's like one of my favorite. I know most people don't really care because it's Grizzlies got to win this year. It's so much is going into this season. You want to be a contender. But those are the fun training camp stories that I enjoy.
Listen, man, let's get off into the weeds of this. The Grizzlies could use a bit more depth at that center position. You add another center, you keep Jaren at the power forward position where he is obviously the best. So sure, why not go out there and see what this guy has to offer? What's his name, Yuki?
Kai Soto. No, Kai Soto's the big one. Yuki Kawamura is the small one.
Go out there and get Kai.
Backup point guard depth.
Listen,
Yuki Kawamura. Listen, I really hope he gets an opportunity with the Hustle.
We were, like you said, we were up here watching that game against France, and Japan should have won that game. Japan absolutely should have knocked France out. That Saturday, I do believe, I had an event to do. Shout out to Kevin Cerrito. We were over at, what's this brewery right down here? We were at Ghost River. At Ghost River. Anthony Sane was there. Katrina Coleman was there. Rico on Your Radio was there. Kevin Cerrito was there. They had the Japan game up on the TVs, and we were watching it. We were watching Yuki. He was like, oh, okay. I'm glad the Grizzlies got this guy on Exhibit 10. We want to see what all he can do. You brought up the fact that he got 7 rebounds in that matchup against the big-ass French team. He also dropped 15 points in the FIBA World Cup the year before against Finland. And that was Japan's first ever win against a European team, apparently. I didn't know that at the time. I was like, oh. And then after the game, like, yo, just shout out Japan got their first win over a European team. And they got that win because he went out there in the fourth quarter and just took over. Like, it was his world, and everybody was just living in it. Every NBA team has a strong affinity for the shorter players. Mm-hmm. We love a short sensation. Here's hoping that Yuki can come in and be that for the Grizzlies. Get out there and get some. Can you imagine how loud the crowd roar will be when we start logging Yuki minutes? Oh, it's gonna be insane.
We did see a 5'8" backup point guard end up being a pretty important person last year in Jacob Gilyard. We love Jay Gilly. Could Yuki Kawamura be the new Jay Gilly? Like, give him the chance. And he spoke in Japanese to a Japanese reporter, and I went through and I translated the interview that he gave. And so sometimes there's like little things that are off, but the general message usually stays the same. And he's understanding of the position that he's in, right? Like, this is a pretty full roster right now. You certainly have your point guard one. It's 12. It's John Morant, period, the end. But figuring out, Scottie Pippen Jr.'s role on a 2-way contract currently. You also have Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, this whole position list. Guys who are comfortable with the ball in their hand, already being on the roster to serve in that backup point guard light. But if you're not actually playing position basketball, they can all do it. But so Yuki Kawamura has identified like the most likely next step for him would be in the G League. So his goal is to make a G League roster and then ultimately go from the G League to finding a way to get a 2-way contract, then to perhaps have a 10-day opportunity. You're 5'8", you're gonna be fighting against your size in this league. That's just the nature of the NBA. But I root for short kings. I am a fan of the short kings, always and forever.
I thought that was mid-size. I thought that's what we were calling them.
In the NBA, you have to adjust.
Okay, all right.
For my husband, mid-size king. For basketball, short king. You're a short king.
The Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hart, live every weekday at 8 a.m.